right, thank you, Christina, for that introduction. As Christina said, we are going to meet the new editors of AJP-Regu today, and we're going to introduce some of our new initiatives in order to achieve the goals that our editorial team has set out for ourselves. We're going to start with the introduction to our initiatives, then you're going to have the opportunity to meet our associate editors, and at the very end, we'll have a question and answer session. But first, I'd like to just introduce myself briefly. So as Christina said, my name is Gina Yosten. I'm an associate professor of pharmacology and physiology at St. Louis University in St. Louis. My work really centers on the role of orphan G-protein coupled receptors in endocrine diseases such as diabetes, obesity, and reproductive dysfunction. In addition to being a scientist, I am also a mother of three little girls, ages 4, 4, and 3, who very unfortunately are just as ornery as I am. And I'm also a dog mom of a border collie mix who is completely neurotic, but we love him anyway. So I applied for the editorship of AJP-Regu about this time last year. And the reason I applied to become the next editor-in-chief of AJP-Regu was there are many reasons for it. First is because I've always considered AJP-Regu to be my home journal. In fact, about 40% of my published manuscripts are published in AJP-Regu. And I have quite literally seen this journal from every point of view that one can see a journal. I have seen it as an author. I have seen it as a reviewer. I have been involved with the journal first as the editorial assistant, then as an editorial board member, then a guest editor, an associate editor, and now editor-in-chief. So last year when I was deciding how in the future I was going to serve the American Physiological Society, which is my home society, it made sense to me to apply to be the editor-in-chief of AJP-Regu. And because APS is my home society and has been for a very long time since I was a second-year graduate student, I have been able to benefit a lot from that membership in APS. And so it makes me want to give back to the society in as many ways as I can. And again, serving as an editor-in-chief of one of the APS journals seemed like a good fit. So today I'm going to be telling you about our goals as an editorial team moving into the future with AJP-Regu and how we plan to implement those goals. So our goals for AJP-Regu over the next few years are first to just continue the tradition of fair and fast peer review that was set into place by our predecessors, Rick Sampson, who stepped down from the editorship in July 1, as well as his predecessor, Kurt Sigman. We also intend to uphold the commitment of the American Physiological Society to diversity and inclusion through a couple of different initiatives to support people of color and other underrepresented groups. We also intend to support the careers of early career physiologists through another couple of initiatives. And lastly, we want to engage the scientific community in not only intellectual conversations about the work that we publish, but also for issues that concern our readership and our authors. So AJP-Regu is a place where people can publish their manuscripts that cover multiple systems or multiple species. And so it really has a broad scope to the journal, but also I would say a broad impact. So just to give you an idea of the broad scope of our journal as it has been in the past, and we hope to continue in the future, we publish manuscripts that represent all sorts of different species. So generally in a year, we receive manuscripts that include, as model systems, over 40 different species, everything from flies to lampreys and songbirds, up to sheep and mice, and of course, in humans as well. And also, we receive manuscripts that cover just about every single organ system that invertebrates have. So our scope is very broad, but it's all joined together by the integrative nature of the manuscripts that we receive. Now, in spite of this broad scope of manuscripts that we receive, which one could think could inhibit our ability to provide a fast and fair peer review, and in spite of a global health crisis, we are actually able to provide a fairly rapid turnaround time. So currently, the time to first decision on our manuscripts is about 27 days. And this is even in spite of delays that our reviewers are experiencing due to COVID-19. And we plan to continue to provide this fast and expert peer review in spite of the continued health crisis, and in spite of the fact that we want to continue to provide a home for this broad spectrum of physiology. And how do we do that? Well, the first step in providing fair and fast peer review is assembling an editorial team that represents this broad spectrum of physiology. And I believe that we have done just that. So the individuals that you're going to meet today that are our new associate editors have not only the credentials and the wide scientific social networks that one needs to be able to effectively recruit reviewers, but they also have the complementary expertise that spans all of the different topics of manuscripts that we receive. Not only that, but we have a pool of over 10,000 expert reviewers that allows us to gain expert reviews for every manuscript that we receive. Now, much of this goal, of course, depends on our ability to find the right reviewers for your papers. But effective peer review is really a community effort. And there are ways that you can help. And the biggest way that you can help in making peer review fast and fair is when one of these wonderful people sends you an email and asks you to review a manuscript. Please say yes. We need your expertise, and we actually are going to be developing a new reviewer program that I'll talk to you about in a minute, to where we're training the next generation of reviewers to help us keep our peer review strong and fast. Now, another very important goal that our editorial team has is to use the journal as a tool to promote diversity and inclusion. The APS has a statement on diversity and inclusion, and although we can all read, I think it's important enough for us to take a moment and reflect on this statement. So the APS is committed to creating an environment where individuals can exchange ideas and be safe, accepted, and respected. The Society's dedication to education and to the understanding and betterment of life requires that we embrace diversity and create opportunities for empowerment of all. APS pledges to increase the participation and visibility of underrepresented groups. We ask all members to take a stand for change, to commit to inclusion, respect, and equality, and to foster the open-mindedness that is the staple of discovery, creativity, and a better future for all. The editorial team of AJP-Regu strongly believes in the importance of this commitment, and we are dedicated to using our platform as leaders of this journal to uphold the commitment of the APS to diversity and inclusion. But commitment requires action. And the actions we are taking to promote diversity and inclusion center on increasing the participation and the visibility of physiologists from underrepresented groups. So our team is currently forming our new editorial board. And as we're forming our new editorial board, we are committed to ensuring that the new editorial board of AJP-Regu includes members of the physiology community that represent the broad spectrum of people that call themselves physiologists. So we will be including people from underrepresented groups and making sure that our board represents women and minorities. In addition, we're committed to increasing the visibility of physiologists from underrepresented groups. And we're going to do that in a couple of ways. First, we're going to increase our advertisement of the work published by physiologists from underrepresented groups, published in our journal, on our social media platforms, particularly Twitter and Facebook. And in addition, we are going to start this year 3 new special collections within AJP-Regu that focus on increasing the visibility of physiologists from underrepresented groups. So these will include a collection that coincides with Black History Month, International Women's Day, and National Hispanic Heritage Month. And so whenever this is up and running, we're working on getting this into the EJP system now. What authors will see is the option to click one of these buttons to have your manuscript included in one of these special collections. So along the same vein, we're also very committed to supporting early career investigators. So one of the ways we're going to do this is by keeping up a tradition that was started by Rick Sampson, which is the annual New Investigator Review competition. So this is a competition that is for any new investigator, basically anyone who is an assistant professor or equivalent, up to assistant professor or equivalent, who submits an original single author review article on an area of their expertise. And these manuscripts can be submitted anytime. So this is a rolling competition. And all that the applicant needs to do is during submission, select the New Investigator Award under calls for papers, and also indicate in your cover letter that you're applying for this award. And so prize winners will be selected by the associate editors and myself, and winners will be announced at the annual APS meeting and receive $1,000. In addition, we are excited to announce that we're going to be starting a new reviewer training program, which again is for anyone up to the level of assistant professor or equivalent, including postdocs and instructors. And while we're still working out a date for this training program, it is likely to be sometime in October. And what it is a training session to learn how to critique a submitted manuscript and how to write a constructive review on that manuscript. Now, anyone who completes this training program and then goes on to review at least one manuscript for AJP-Regu will be considered for part of the AJP-Regu Early Career Review Board, from which we will recruit reviewers to review every single one of our manuscripts if possible. So lastly, our last goal is to engage the scientific community in intellectual discussion about the science that we publish and also the issues that are important to our readership and to our authors. And the way we're doing this is by increasing our social media presence. So if you haven't already, go check us out on Twitter and on Facebook. We are, with the help of our new editorial assistant, Katie, we are getting these pages up and running, and we hope to facilitate many interesting discussions. So without further ado, I would like to go to introducing you to the new editorial team. All right. So the first associate editor that I would like to introduce to you is also our deputy editor-in-chief, Jenny Sasser.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny Sasser. I am very happy to be serving as the deputy editor for the journal. Thank you all for being here today, and I want to say a special thank you to all of those who have reviewed for us over the past few months. And I also know it's been very busy, so thank you to everyone who, even though you haven't been able to review, who has suggested other reviewers. That's also been very, very helpful. I'm very excited about the initiatives that we have this term to promote the diversity and inclusion in our reviewers and our authors, and to highlight our early career physiologists. I'm an associate professor at the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson in the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology. I received my PhD from the Medical College of Georgia and then postdoc at the University of Florida. And my research is focused on hypertensive kidney disease, especially in the settings of pregnancy and the long-term consequences of hypertensive disorders of pregnancy. So therefore, some of the papers that I'll be covering include pregnancy and neonatal physiology, as well as kidney disease and hypertension. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of your best work. Also consider reviews, especially for those of you who are eligible for the new Investigator review competition. And I look forward to working with all of you, either as authors or reviewers. Thank you.
Would you like me to go, Gina? Yes. Good morning, everyone. It's morning here. I'm talking from Adelaide in South Australia. I'm really excited to be part of this editors team. My name is Christina Finesse. I'm a professor and senior research scientist at the University of Adelaide in the medical school in South Australia. I'm a nutritional scientist by training. I obtained my PhD from the University of Hohenheim near Stuttgart in Germany, and then did my PhD at the University of Sheffield in the UK, and then moved on to a postdoc at the University of Zurich in Switzerland. So you guessed it, yes, I love traveling. And then in early 2000, I moved to the University of Adelaide in South Australia. And my research is entirely clinical, basically, and really covers the effects of various dietary nutrients that we select for their potency to activate specific gastrointestinal functions that we're interested in, mainly gut and glucoregulatory hormones, but also motor functions, including gastric emptying, and how these functions relate to appetite regulation and postprandial blood glucose control. And so our studies range from healthy people to those with weight problems and also type 2 diabetes. So on a personal note, as I said, I've lived in South Australia for over 20 years, and together with my husband and our 15-year-old daughter, we live in a small property in the hills behind Adelaide, which is a lovely area. And when I don't work or review manuscripts, as many of us do, I love gardening, cooking, road cycling, hiking, and of course spending time with my family and our lovely friends. Now, with regards to my role as an associate editor, I'm so extremely honored to have been selected into this role, and really so excited to be part of this excellent team. And I think, like all of us, I really want to work as hard as I possibly can to really maintain and further enhance the excellent reputation that AJP-Regulatory has got and that we all know. And a bit like Gina, I have really sort of grown up with that journal. I have always known AJP-Regulatory. And so I want to really actively solicit outstanding work from our colleagues around the world to continue to also extend the breadth of research that we cover. So yes, I'm really excited to be part of this undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Next, I'd like to introduce Allison Hindell.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison, and I am a member of the Comparative and Evolutionary Physiology section of APS, and so I handle the comparative physiology papers now for the journal. My research focuses on a number of mammalian model systems, or non-model systems, if you will, that challenge how we think about homeostasis. I work with hypoxia-tolerant animals, including hibernators and diving seals, and I do a fair bit of work in the field, as well as in the lab, trying to blend those two types of data collection into integrative stories about these amazing animals. So I am presently at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I'm an assistant professor, now tenure track here. Prior to being here, I spent 5 years as a research faculty member at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. And a few postdocs before that, I got my PhD at Texas A&M University. So this was a really great opportunity, and I'm so thrilled to be able to be involved in this journal. I'm especially looking forward to, continuing to broaden our comparative reach and to drive some of the amazing and cool research on life all over this planet towards this journal. And I'm in particular excited to try to broaden our reach to early career physiologists and to increase their representation as reviewers. Thanks.
Wonderful, thanks, Allison. Next, Nikki Jernigan. I'd like to introduce Nikki Jernigan.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. As Gina said, my name is Nikki Jernigan. I'm associate professor in cell biology and physiology at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. My research areas are basically in vascular physiology and signaling within the vasculature wall. I do things across many different vascular beds, but my primary focus has been in the pulmonary circulation. So I do a lot of more respiratory and pulmonary physiology. I am so excited to be part of this AJP-Regulatory editorial team and very excited about the initiatives we have going on. APS has always been my home society and has supported me throughout my career. And so I'm really excited to be giving back and contributing as an associate editor. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Nikki. All right, next I'd like to introduce Kisa Mathes.
Hello, everyone. I am Kisa Mathes, an assistant professor at the University of North Texas Health Science Center in Fort Worth, Texas. I am so honored and happy to serve the APS in this capacity. I think the APS awarded me my first ever grant, which was the Porter Physiology Fellowship. And since then, I've always vowed to give back to the society. So within the APS, I've worked with the Porter Physiology Committee, but also the NCAR steering section committee, the awards committee, and the sex and gender interest group. And my primary scientific home is water and electrolyte homeostasis and secondary NCAR. So you should guess my research interests include neuroimmune mechanisms and their roles in regulating inflammation. Specifically in diseases where inflammation is causative of the pathogenesis, the morbidity, and the mortality, like hypertension and lupus. So I'm very proud to have been trained under Patricia Molina, Dr. Patricia Molina at LSU Health Science Center in New Orleans. And that's my daughter, sorry about that. And then also under Dr. Michael Ryan at the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson. So finally, I wanted to let you know that I have a passion for physiology as a discipline and for research. for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and for K through 12 outreach. And I think that my expertise will complement the strengths of the other associate editors of AJP-Regulatory. So it's been a fun 3 months so far, and I'm so looking forward to the next few years on this editorial board. So thank you.
Thank you, Kisa. All right. Next, I'd like to introduce Zach Schneider.
Thank you, Gina. So I'm Zach Schneider. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Kinesiology in the School of Public Health at Indiana University, Bloomington. So sorry, that's a mouthful. Previous to that, I was an assistant professor in exercise and nutrition sciences at the University at Buffalo. So I've been here for about a year. My affiliation within the APS is I'm affiliated with the Environmental and Exercise Physiology section, and I'm actually serve as the thermal counselor of that section. So by training, I'm an exercise physiologist, but most of my research is in thermal and environmental physiology, particularly as it relates to temperature regulation, water and electrolyte regulation, as well as some cardiovascular control. So I'm really excited for this opportunity to give back to the APS, and I'm really kind of particularly excited about working with Gina and the team for some of the initiatives. I think they're very important within science, and I'm also really happy to start to be a part of the machine of scientific dissemination. I think what we've kind of noticed over the past, particularly with the pandemic, is how important scientific dissemination is in peer review. So regarding papers, I tend to cover mostly thermal, environmental, and or exercise focused papers. And I'd like to say thank you to all the reviewers who have said yes over the last few months, and to please keep them coming.
All right, thank you, Zach. Next, I'd like to introduce Carolina Skibaka.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carolina Skibaka. I am currently an associate professor in the nutritional sciences department at Penn State University. I got my training in neuroscience, my doctoral training in neuroscience at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. I also like to travel, so I moved to Sweden for my postdoc, and most of my focus of the postdoc was on neuroendocrinology. And from then on, I got my first faculty position also in Sweden at University of Gothenburg. And I think there I started moving slowly from pure neuroscience to a little bit more of physiology. And so my primary interest is in understanding brain circuits that regulate feeding behavior, and also circuits that regulate thermogenesis and how they come together to control body weight. I have now, since last year, relocated to Pennsylvania, to Penn State University. So several transcontinental moves there. I think it's an incredible honor to serve as an associate editor. I couldn't imagine saying no to this. I think all the goals that we have are incredible, and my biggest hope is that we're going to be effective in achieving them, and I hope that I can make a contribution there. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolina. Right, next I'd like to introduce Audrey Stone.
Hi, I'm Audrey. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Texas at Austin, and I've been there for, I'm starting my 6th year right now. I study the autonomic control of circulation during exercise, and specifically I specialize in the exercise pressor reflex in health and disease. Right now we're focused on how type 1 and type 2 diabetes affect the exercise pressor reflex. And we do this in an animal model, in different rat models actually. So I was first asked to serve as a guest editor by Craig Crandall and Rick Sampson maybe a year and a half ago. And I've had the benefit, I guess, of receiving some mentorship for about a year and a half before coming into this position. So when Gina asked me to come on in an official capacity, I was just thrilled. And so I'm I've been able to hit the ground running, and it's been fun so far the first few months. Let's see. As an associate editor, I hope to accomplish, I say on a personal level, getting to know authors and reviewers in my field. Even just with my little bit of experience over the last year and a half, it's been amazing to just be able to reach out and hear what different people are doing and talk to people. It's opened a lot of doors for me within the scientific community. Professionally, moving forward as an associate editor, I hope to increase the amount of publications that AJP-Reg publishes within the field of autonomic control in humans and animals. And so if we were at conferences, I would be bugging you to submit to this journal. And I did so as a guest editor, and I plan on doing it again as soon as I see you face to face. When I'm not working on research, I enjoy biking and trail running with my wife, and just enjoying everything that Austin, Texas has to offer, and just trying to keep up with my 14-month-old daughter. So that's pretty much what we're doing. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thanks, Audrey. Talking about exercise, keeping up with the 14-month-old daughter, we'll give it to you, right? So next, I'd like to introduce Rita Tostes.
Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Rita Tostes. I'm a professor of pharmacology and chair of the pharmacology department at the Ribeirão Preto Medical School. It's a difficult name to say. Gina was here a couple of times. Ribeirão Preto is a city with 500,000 people in São Paulo state in Brazil. My research group investigates the mechanisms that control vascular function and that contribute to vascular dysfunction or vascular abnormalities in cardiovascular and metabolic diseases, such as arterial hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. In other words, we try to understand what has gone wrong with the vasculature in these cardiovascular and metabolic diseases. We have a special interest on how sex hormones, aldosterone, and also overactivation of the immune system contribute to vascular dysfunction in these diseases. I'm gonna compete for your manuscripts with Dr. Kisa Mathes. We have similar interests. I'm honored and very, very excited by being one of the associate editors of the American Journal of Physiology. And I think the goals set by Dr. Gina Yosten are simply excellent. I'm particularly enthusiastic and with her commitment, which reflects the American Physiological Society commitment to diversity and inclusion, and to support the careers of early physiologists and also junior investigators. I have a big group of students, and they are all committed to diversity and inclusion. I hope I can properly serve the journal and help to spread not only the journal, but also the American Physiological Society values. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. All right. Our last, but certainly not least of our associate editors is Andrea Zombock, who we hope has not been blown away by the hurricane down in New Orleans. Andrea, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. So we actually are very lucky because Tropical Storm or Hurricane Sally moved east from New Orleans. So we are on the dry side with wind and not too much rain so far. So my name is Andrea Jumbo, and I am an associate professor in the Department of Physiology at Tulane University, New Orleans, Louisiana. I received my PhD from the University of Pécs in Hungary. Then I moved to the United States, where I completed my postdoctoral training. My work focuses on the central regulation of autonomic functions in health and disease, in particular during diabetes and obesity. So we study the organization and function of organ-related circuits in the hypothalamus and brainstem. So as an associate editor, I would like to contribute to the excellence of the journal. And then I agree with everybody, and then I don't want to repeat the positive parts that we are trying to accomplish. So I also will oversee papers in the field of neuroscience, especially in the central regulation of autonomic functions. And on a personal note, I am married and I have a daughter and a wonderful dog.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Lastly, I would, and definitely not least, I wanted to have Katie Cornuta give us a brief introduction. Katie is our new editorial assistant. So she is someone that many of our reviewers and authors will be interacting with. So Katie, can you say a quick hello?
Hello, everyone. I am Katie Cornuta, and yes, I'm the editorial assistant. And yeah, if you ever have any questions or concerns with your manuscript or getting the website to work, because everyone knows sometimes things go wrong, I'm always there to reach out to. And if I can't fix it myself, I know all the people to fix it. I have emails. So I'm looking forward to getting to know everyone. I'm pretty much always available if anyone needs any help. And I'm so glad to be a part of this society. It's been wonderful since I've joined. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. So before we move on to some questions and hopefully we'll be able to give you some answers, I just wanted to very publicly say thank you to all of my associate editors and to Katie for saying yes to me whenever I gave them the question of, will you be a part of the AJP-Regu team? I am so excited to have all of you on this team, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you and to working with all of our reviewers and our authors. So with that, we'd like to open things up for some questions. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box and we will read them out loud. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm starting to see some questions. Is it a requirement for submissions to AJP-Reg to have experimental data from multiple species in the same project paper? No, it is not. It is absolutely not. So we accept papers that have a comparative bent to them. We definitely accept, we definitely receive papers and publish papers from multiple species, but it's absolutely okay to send us papers that have only one species included, for sure. Here's a question from Brittany Goris-Martins. What are your thoughts on only the editors choosing the reviewers rather than asking the authors to select reviewers? So in our process, the authors that submit manuscripts have the opportunity to suggest reviewers. Now, if I'm understanding your question correctly, you think that you want the authors to be able to select the reviewers? Is there a way to ask Brittany if that's what she means? Can we give her, unmute her for a second? Suggest reviewers, yes. So you can definitely suggest reviewers in our editorial system. And most of the time we will try to utilize at least one of the suggested reviewers. Now, when we ask those people if they'll review a manuscript, we can't guarantee that they'll say yes. So I highly recommend that you suggest reviewers, but go into it knowing that they might not say yes. And we, of course, can't force anyone to say yes. Okay, so I see one from Warren Bergen. How has the COVID-related initiative for mini reviews to make up for lack of in-person conferences worked out? So we have only received a few mini reviews, and I think they're actually, a lot of them are actually still in the process of being reviewed. So I can't give you too much data as to how things are going on. Do any of the associate editors have any experience with the mini reviews that they'd like to talk about? Nobody? I think that really remains to be seen then, Warren. I think that the APS is adapting to COVID really well in having sessions like this, having sessions that are mini symposia, and then implementing the mini reviews to help keep us all connected during this time that we have to be physically apart. And so I would like to encourage participation in these APS events just so that we can all, maintain our connection to the society and to each other. Okay. So from Malcolm Gordon, are you considering increasing outreach to other comparative physiological workers in such areas as ecological, environmental, and evolutionary physiology? So Allison, do you have any comments?
I think that's a really great question, and I think that's something that is important that we try to come up with a strategy to address. And what I can say is that I know that this is really an ongoing conversation, not just for this journal, but for the American Physiological Society overall. How do we interact with other professional societies that are the main scientific home for quite a few comparative physiologists, and how do we make, for example, the 4-year inter-society meeting for comparative physiology a little bit more inter-society and a little bit less of an APS initiative. So I definitely have my eye on that concept, and if anyone at all in our community or beyond has suggestions for how to make and grow those connections, we would love to hear them.
Great. Thanks, Allison. I see a question from Douglas Crawford. When will you provide reviewer training, and is it for grads, postdocs? So the reviewer training program is going to be for, actually, we call it the new reviewer training program. It's for early career scientists from postdoc up to the level of assistant professor or equivalent. So I think we could talk about in letting graduate students participate in the training, but those that are part of the new reviewer program, our intention is to have them review for us, and once they review for us, become part of our early career review board, which will be a special designation. Now that training, we're still working out the dates with APS, finding a date that doesn't overlap with other APS virtual events. At this point, Stacy, if you're there, I think we were looking at early October, but that isn't set in stone yet. But we're going to be sending out lots of advertisements when we know what the date is, so that we can get as many early career physiologists trained as possible. Okay, from Linda Reineman, she says, just want to thank you all for your dedication and willingness to do this important work. Thank you, Linda, for joining us. Question, if a submitted paper is earmarked for one of the special issues, will publication be delayed until that special issue is released? No. So our intention with the special issues, so for the special collections that will coincide with Black History Month, for instance, they will go up online as they always do, almost immediately once they're accepted. It's just that they will be included in a special section under collections, so that we can more efficiently highlight those manuscripts on our social media platforms and in advertisement and promotional materials. I see one from William Pierce. When Maureen Kellerwood was an associate editor, she actively encouraged fetal physiologists to submit their manuscripts to AJP-Regu. Will that area of emphasis continue? Is there an interest in having AJP-Regu recognized as a home for fetal physiology? The short answer is absolutely. Jenny, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, so yes, I would love to have that carry on. So I trained at the University of Florida as a postdoc with Charlie Wood and Maureen Kellerwood, and I would love to carry on her tradition of making AJP-Regu a home for pregnancy, for neonatology, and for fetal physiology. So yes, please encourage your colleagues to continue submitting to us. In the last couple of months when I've been an AE, we have had some very outstanding submissions, so we hope to get those out soon, and we're looking forward to continuing to have the best of fetal physiology represented here at AJP.
Thanks, Jenny. I actually see another question from Katinka about suggesting reviewers. So is that mandatory upon submission, or is it only optional? So it is optional to suggest reviewers. We much prefer for you to suggest reviewers because it helps us gauge what areas of expertise you think that will be required to effectively review your manuscript, so it helps us. So I actually highly encourage you to give us suggested reviewers, but you don't have to, but I would do it. Let's see here. From Jose Herrero, we've heard from Audrey Stone how becoming an editor has helped building a network. Can you comment on the difficulties of work on your professorship research and on your assistant editor job at the same time? Audrey, I think that question is for you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take this one. Yeah, so actually, I think the best way to answer this is that this is one of the benefits of finding or being an associate editor for a journal that really works with my research, right? So I'm able to manage publications from people, my peers, people in my field, people I look up to, right? So if anything, it really just helps motivate me to continue with my research. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And so in a way, I'm reading the most recent literature that's out there all the time, which is always difficult in managing. I'm at a teaching institute as well. So managing teaching and service activities and my research. So now I automatically have a reason or a dedicated time to keeping up with literature. So that's awesome. And just getting to know the people in my field, right? So, and learning more about what they do. So I would say that it's not difficult at all. It's time consuming, right? But everything is time consuming, especially when you're working towards your career. But it's just a wonderful opportunity. And I think that if anything, it's only helped me with my research. I hope that answers your question.
Great. Okay, I do not see any other questions. Christina, do you see any that I missed?
No, I think that's all that have come in.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, thank you again to everyone for joining us today, for giving us your questions and your comments, for submitting your manuscripts to our journal, for being reviewers of our journal. Thank you to all of the associate editors again for the great work that you do. With that, I think we will close. And Christina, do you have anything to close us up with?
No, I just want to thank everybody for attending. And since the session will be recorded, this will be shared probably in a few weeks with the Regu community and APS community. So thank you.
Great, thank you.